Today we're going to go over how the possibility of admitting Missouri as a slave state in 1820 nearly led to a civil war in 1820. 12 of our first 13 states had slavery. However, after the Revolution, the northern ones started to give up their slavery. Once the free and slave states equaled out in the early 1800s, it became an informal policy to bring in a free state with every slave state. In 1819, Missouri applied to become a slave state. There was seemingly, at the time, no free state to bring in to balance it. This caused a crisis in the country that resulted in a year of debates, a threat to secede from the Union by the South, and a fundamental change in how the South defended slavery. As more states came into the Union, a border between slave states and the free states began to appear. The first part of the border was what they called the Mason-Dixon line. That was the border between Pennsylvania and Maryland. The second part of the border, as these states came in, was the Ohio River. And the problem with Missouri when it applied to be a state in 1819 is it was north of the Ohio River. And so this made many of the people in the northern states believe that slavery was starting to move north again, and they wanted nothing to have to do it. And so many of the northern states sought to deny Missouri statehood over that issue. The debate over the admission of Missouri as a slave state lasted over a year, and it became a very bitter debate. Slave states pointed out that there was nothing in the Constitution prohibiting a slave state north of the Ohio River. Representatives from the southern states began to openly discuss seceding from the Union, in other words, forming their own country, if Missouri was not allowed in. Some Northerners thought that wouldn't be so bad to get rid of this immoral practice from the United States. A very ominous change came in the Southern defense of slavery itself. From the founders until these debates, slavery was always described as a necessary evil. It was bad, but it was needed at the time and eventually would go away. During this debate, however, Southerners, led by John C. Calhoun of South Carolina, began saying that slavery was not evil at all. It was a good thing. It was good for the states, it was good for the plantation owners, it was good for their wives, and even that it was good for slaves. So the debate would finally have to end when a compromise was made to somehow keep this union together. The deadlock was broken because of a compromise by a man named Henry Clay. Henry Clay would later become known as the Great Compromiser because of 3 different compromises he made over 30 years that helped hold the country together. This one is known as the Missouri Compromise. The first part of the compromise is that Maine would split off from Massachusetts. It was part of the state of Massachusetts at that time, and it would split off and be admitted as a free state. Missouri would enter the Union as a slave state. And then finally, there would be no more slavery allowed, other than Missouri, of course, north of 36 degrees 30 minutes latitude. This is an imaginary line was extended west from Missouri's southern border. The agreement on this 3 points would end the Missouri debate and bring peace back to the country, and slavery would not be a big issue in the country for the next 25 years. So here's how the compromise looks on the map. First, you have Maine. That's Maine right there. That becomes a free state. Missouri would be a slave state. And then you had the border between slavery and non-slavery. You had the Mason-Dixon line, you had the Ohio River, and then the southern border of Missouri on going here. No slavery would be allowed north of that. This is 36 degrees. $30 minutes. latitude. So you could have slavery down in here. So you could have slavery down in this area, but there could be no slavery north of that. That was the end of the Missouri Compromise, and it would last up until the 1840s.